With so many high-end foams from Saucony, it's easy to think that one of its older foams, PWRRun Plus, is yesterday's tech. But this is the Ride 19, and it proves that you don't necessarily need peba or aTPU to make an excellent shoe. Yo, what's going on? My name is Kofuzi and I'm an elite runner who reviews running shoes here on YouTube. And today I want to talk to you guys about the Saucony Ride 19. But before I give you my thoughts on this shoe, I do want to go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that Saucony sent to me for the purpose of review, so I didn't have to pay for these shoes. However, nobody's paying me to make this video or to include their brand in this video, and no one's going to get a chance to preview any of my pleasure or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the Ride 19, and let's start with the specs. This is a 36mm stack height shoe with an 8mm drop, giving us 28mm of stack height in the forefoot. And in this shoe, we've got PWRRun Plus, which is a beaded foam. Now we've got a geometry that's very different than when we saw last year. This is a Saucony Ride 18. And even though these two shoes have the same foam in them, they're set up in quite different ways. The composition of the foam in the Ride 18 felt a lot more dense. The geometry was set up so that way it would compress less. They were really trying to aim for a lot of stability, and there were a lot of cues and hints that this was going to be a more stabilized, more solid kind of a shoe. And the changes kind of mirror what we saw in the Triumph, which is a shoe that I reviewed recently. That shoe also went from a geometry similar to what we saw in the previous Ride, and a density of foams and a geometry of foams that were very stout and very stable, and it did not want to compress. This year in the Triumph, there was a lot of nice changes that made it for a very soft and a very enjoyable ride, and I appreciated the change. So the visual cues that I'm getting, at least so far, are positive indicators. To protect all the midsole foam that we have in this shoe, there is a updated outsole pattern, very different than what we've seen previously. The main thing that I noticed right away here is that there isn't kind of like a highlighted area right on the inner part of your arch on the medial side. That's usually where Saucony likes to let you know or show you that this is going to be a stabilized shoe, or have that hint of stability that Saucony likes to put in a lot of their shoes. That hint of stability, at least the visual indicator, isn't here. Plus we have a open area between the forefoot and the heel on the outer portion of the shoe, indicating that they're trying to make this outsole a little bit more flexible. And the amount of rubber that they're using here is also very different. It feels a lot thinner than what I've typically seen in Ride shoes in the past. Moving to the upper, we have an engineered mesh, which is very soft and comfortable. The shoe fits well. I went with my regular running shoe size, and that worked out really well for me. I didn't feel like the shoe was pinching me in any way, and I felt like I had plenty of room for my toes. The Ride has also been a shoe that has been unnecessarily puffy in some previous years, and so I'm glad to see that they reduced the amount of material that they're using on the upper, especially in the tongue. There's a reasonable amount of padding in the tongue here for a shoe in this category of daily trainer, and there is a reasonable amount of padding all through the heel cup back here around the back of the foot. There is some structure in the heel cup at the bottom of where your heel is going to be sitting. It doesn't go too tall though, but it does go quite a bit around, so that way you have a little bit of structure or a place, a seat for your heel to sit inside the shoe. Overall, this shoe comes in at a respectable weight for daily trainers in 2026, 8.9 ounces or 255 grams. Now that we talked about what the shoe is like on paper, let's talk about what it's like on the road. I am thrilled with how they've changed the Saucony Ride 19. This is the Saucony Ride that I've always wanted from the beginning, since I started running in the Ride back at version 10. It's a Goldilocks shoe of a daily trainer. It's cushioned, but not mushy. It's bouncy, but not firm. It's the type of shoe that I can reach for just about every day of the week. For my regular easy day runs, the Ride 19 is the kind of shoe that I want. It's even soft enough where I think I could take it with me for recovery run days. So days where I'm a little bit more beat up and want to have a little bit more comfort for my feet. the Ride 19 is still soft enough that it could provide that level of comfort. I think the only thing that I wouldn't do with this shoe is very fast work. I think you could pick up the pace a little bit. I think you could do steady runs in this shoe, no problem. I think if you had some strides to your run, that wouldn't be a problem either. Most daily trainers can handle strides really well without any problem, so that's not too much of a surprise. But I think if you're getting to stuff where you've got interval work, where you're getting to like threshold level of speed, that's where I think I'd want something a little bit more purpose-built for faster running. But in terms of the kinds of things that I want a daily trainer to do, I think that the Saucony Ride 19 is an excellent shoe for it. Another thing that I'm really enjoying about the Ride 19 is that it does have a bit of a wider footprint, which I think is part of what makes it feel like it's not going to be the best shoe for running a lot of faster miles. But I think because of that, they're able to make a stable platform for you to land on. So there's still plenty of shoe that if you're landing a little bit off center, then you're still going to be able to have a predictable and stable landing. And that width enables them to get rid of that hint of stability that they used to put kind of on the front of the heel on the arch side in a lot of the Ride shoes that I've run in the past. And so this is a shoe that feels more neutral to me, or feels like an actual neutral shoe, whereas previous Rides were kind of like light stability shoes in my mind. But this feels much more neutral. It feels much more comfortable, but it's not too floppy. Again, it's a Goldilocks shoe where it fits kind of just right. And I think what further helps the feeling that this is a very neutral, everyday usable kind of shoe is they've gotten rid of a lot of the excess padding in it. A lot of the puffiness is really nice if you're not planning on running in the shoe, just kind of wearing it around. That plushness is really nice for step-in comfort and casual wear. But for a shoe that I want to put in real miles in, I don't really want to have that much puffiness in the heel cup and in the tongue like we've seen in some previous years. And especially as we get to summer months, something that I've complained about pretty much every Ride iteration that I've ever run in is that a lot of the materials in the upper become a sweat sponge. I feel like they've gotten rid of a lot of those problems in the Ride 19, so I'm really enjoying the changes there. And overall, I'm really enjoying the changes to the Ride 19 shoe. Some people are looking for a do-it-all kind of shoe, and I think that maybe this isn't it because of the fact that it doesn't really feel like a super speedy shoe. I think the way the foam is set up for softness and comfort and everyday use in terms of the heel drop and the materials and the geometry make it not as good for very fast running. But it's a do-a-lot kind of shoe. It can do a lot of things, and it could do those things really well. So I feel like this is going to be really high on my list of my favorite daily trainers for 2026, and hopefully it doesn't stay underrated. I know that a lot of people have been overlooking the Ride because Saucony has pretty much put it on the back burner for a lot of years, and they've been putting less than stellar materials in it previously, using just regular PWRRun, I think, for a handful of years, which was just underperforming. But I think the Ride is definitely back. It is the best Ride that I've run in. The Ride is a shoe definitely worth your attention. Go to your running retail. I'm sure that they're going to be carrying it, and give it a try. I think it's worth it, and hopefully more of you guys get to try it because I do think it is a really excellent daily trainer. Now let's wrap up this video by going over the buying guide, and we'll also discuss some alternatives. The Saucony Ride 19 is an excellent daily training shoe that is peppy enough for your everyday runs, but soft enough and comfortable enough for your recovery runs. Usually, shoes that have been around this long that make it to version 19 don't change all that much year over year. So the amount of change that they put into version 19 is a dramatic surprise to me. But because I like everything that they've done to this shoe, that surprise is welcome. This shoe is available now for $145, and that is a little bit expensive, like a tariff amount expensive to me in my mind. I'd love to see this shoe at $140. I think that put it right in line with the other favorite daily training shoes that are out there on the market that are performing similarly. I think if you wanted to save a couple of bucks, you can get down to the Ride 18, but remember, this is a significantly different shoe. It's a lot more firm, there's a hint of stability to it, and there's a lot more puffiness in the tongue and in the heel cup. If those are things that sound great to you, and if you've liked the previous Ride iterations of the past, I'd say then go with the Ride 18, because now you could pick it up for $100. But if you're looking for something that's a bit more modern and you want something that's different than the Rides, or if you haven't run in the Ride previously and you're curious about it now, go with the Ride 19 and the $145 price. Now let's take a look at some other shoes that are out there on the market to see where the 145 for the Ride 19 stacks up. And I think we got to start with the calls coming from inside the house. We got to look at the Triumph 23. Now these two shoes have made some very analogous changes in the year over year from their prior iterations, and they even look really similar. The geometries between these two shoes are almost the same. The way that they've colored the foam is almost exactly the same, and the uppers are almost exactly the same, although the Triumph 23, it being technically the max cushion shoe, has more puffiness in the tongue and more padding through the heel cup. There's also a different foam that they're using in this shoe. They're using PWRRun PB, which is a beaded peba foam, so it's a race caliber foam that they're using in a max cushion application. It is a little bit taller, 1 millimeter taller in the heel, but it has a 10 millimeter drop, so it ends up being 1 millimeter shorter in the forefoot. So basically pretty much exactly the same with slight differences, which I think for a lot of people, given the change in foams between these two shoes, are going to be really hard to kind of parse out just by looking at these two shoes on paper. So what's the difference between these two? In terms of use case, how you would use the shoe, I'm having a hard time really separating out when I would use the Ride 19 or when I would use the Triumph 23. And counterintuitively, I find that the foam in the Triumph 23, even though it's a beaded peba, is a bit more firm than the foam that's in the PWRRun Plus of the Ride 19. So if you want a daily training shoe that's a little bit on the softer side, I'd say go with the Ride 19. But if you want a daily training shoe that's a little bit more firm and has a little hint of stability in this arch slash heel area, I'd say go with the Triumph 23, because I'm getting a little bit more density with the Triumph. I'm getting a little bit more pop, but a little bit more density as well. There's a little bit more weight. And I also feel like if you're one of my bigger, taller friends, go with the Triumph 23 rather than the Ride 19. So those are some ways that I would differentiate between the shoes, and depending on what you're looking for, that's going to decide which is the better option for you. The other thing to consider is that the Triumph 23 is a lot more expensive, coming in at $170. So you really got to like the differences in order for it to make sense over the Ride 19, which I think is an excellent choice. But now let's look outside the brand and see what the rest of the market has to offer. And I think we got to start with another beaded foam, and there's a couple of brands making them, but I think that the shoe that comes to mind in terms of what it feels like to run in the Ride 19 that I think we need to look at is from Salomon, and this is the Aero Blaze version 3. Now this is another beaded TPU foam that has almost the exact same stack height and the exact same drop, and it has a very similar feel in terms of what's happening in the heel of the shoe. It's soft without being mushy, it's bouncy without being firm, and I enjoy the feeling that I'm getting in the back there. And even though there is supposed to be the same amount of foam in the forefoot between these two shoes, it feels to me like there's a dramatic drop off in the Aero Blaze 3, which to me makes it feel like it's a much snappier shoe, a much more neutral shoe. It makes it feel like a faster shoe, a shoe that I would take for a lot of workouts, but it also is less cushion. It's a lot more firm. And the way that I would choose between these two shoes is that if you want a daily trainer that can go fast often, then I'd say get the Aero Blaze 3. If you want a daily trainer that can go comfy and max cushion and recovery day more often, then I'd say go with the Ride 19. The Aero Blaze 3 retails at $140, which I feel like is the right price for both of these shoes. So you're getting pretty much the same price, but saving a little bit if you go with the Aero Blaze. But mainly I wouldn't pick on price, I'd pick on the kind of shoe that you want. And then the last shoe that I want to talk about is one that isn't a beaded foam, but has a feeling that's very similar to the beaded foams that we've been talking about today. And this is from Tyr. This is a brand that typically gets overlooked by the run community, but they've been putting out some real hits. This is the Tyr Maverick, and this is a tall stack height shoe. It's way taller than any of the shoes that we talked about today, although it has a similar drop of 8 millimeters. But the feeling that I'm getting from this shoe is very similar to the feelings that I'm getting in the Ride 19, where it's a cushioned daily trainer that's not mushy soft, but there's plenty of pep to this shoe as well. This shoe is also a lot lighter, even though there's more foam here. It's a lot lighter than any of the shoes that I've talked about today. A lot of that's coming from the foam itself, but also the upper here is less padded. It has more of a speed shoe type of upper built to it. Almost no padding in the tongue, very little padding around the heel cup, and I find it to be very comfortable, and it's also very wide. So it has more of a foot-shaped toe box to this shoe. So those of you who don't really like getting your foot crammed into traditional running shoes, you should definitely be looking at the Tyr Maverick because there's going to be a lot more space for you in this shoe. But these are two shoes that I could use very similarly for everyday daily training. But the Tyr Maverick, I think, is even more versatile. I think it's better at long runs, especially long runs you want to go faster in. And I think it's better because of its lightness at doing faster stuff than the Ride 19 is. So I think in a lot of dimensions, it's a better shoe than the Ride 19, but you are going to be paying more for it. It's $150. So it's more expensive and also not quite as soft as the Ride 19. And I think it's also kind of a goofy looking shoe. I don't like it aesthetically nearly as much as I like the Ride 19, to the extent that the aesthetics of our shoes matters. So those are my thoughts on the Saucony Ride 19. Let me know in the comments down below if you have any other questions about this shoe or any of the shoes that I talked about today. Or better yet, stop by the live stream that I do Mondays and Thursdays over on the PWRRun Club channel. I'd love to see you guys over there in the chat. That's all for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I will see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?